Some of those that are
write-offs. So we'll see.
yeah, PTA does their own.
You ready?
Yes, we are. Well, thank you all for coming today. We have today HCM will be doing some presentations, as well as Dr. Smisko's group in early childhood and professional development. So with that, I will turn it over to Carmen and her staff.
Good evening. My name is Carmen Darville. For those of you who I have not met, I am the Chief of Human Capital Management. I'm going to introduce members of my team. I won't call on them until later, but we have Monica Moffitt, if you just raise your hand, who is a talent leader of Special Systems, which covers certification, background, onboarding, and exiting of employees, as well as a substitute teacher office. We have Dr. Nell Ingram, who is over our alternative certification program. We have Crystal Theory, who is the Director of Compensation, Tony Munoz, who is the Executive Director over the talent side of the house, and we have Christian Coopwood, who is the Senior Analyst for Compensation. So more specific questions, they're on standby to answer those as well. But I will provide an overview for the committee this evening on compensation, alt-cert, and the Permanent Substitute Teacher Initiative. Looking at the agenda, looking at the main priorities for compensation currently, and compensation, as we all know, is such a huge bucket that we can drill deeper into particular points of interest of the commission. But I will do an overview of that, as well as alternative certification, which is an alternate way for teachers to come into the district, and how the business side of that program operates, as well as a Permanent Substitute Teacher Initiative that was voted on last spring, which is an initiative that specifically looks at how to staff teacher absences, not vacancies, when the teacher is out of the classroom. So, an overview of compensation, there are a variety of functions. They administer compensation for the district, as well as design the different compensation models that are employed for our employees. They also administer the reward and incentive program, so supplemental pay, incentive pay, etc. Strategize with senior leadership to educate employees. As we know, there can be a lot of misunderstanding around compensation philosophy and how you pay employees, and so our comp team works directly with hiring managers to create some understanding and train them on that process. And then they're constantly looking at market analysis, TASB reports, etc., in terms of salary structure, how to stay competitive, the market analysis to drive what our pay structure looks like. So in order to conduct market pricing surveys, we are looking at pay scale, Connexa, TASB, for both related instructional personnel as well as campus leadership. And they determine the appropriate grade for each job and recommend hiring rates. So we're going through that process right now for different job functions and seeing, are jobs in the right place? Do they need to move to a different scale? Are they on the appropriate scale, etc.? So we'll have several proposals coming forward this spring. Our current priorities, we're looking at a principal strategic compensation plan. As you likely know, a new principal eval was approved last year, and so the strategic compensation component is the next phase of that plan. And so our compensation team has proposed a compensation model related to campus administrators, specifically principals. They are also working on a job code restructure. So the way our job codes are currently structured in the system, it is a series of codes that makes it quite difficult to actually process people and move people through the system. So as part of the Oracle Phase 2 project in HCM, we are doing a job code restructure that they are a critical piece of. And then TEI is the last major piece that they're also working on right now, as that is going to incorporate strategic compensation for teachers. As you may know, we had the board workshop this past Saturday, and we'll have an upcoming workshop specifically dedicated to the compensation model related to the new teacher evaluation system that will look to move pay to be associated with achievement performance in the student surveys based on the teacher evaluation.
Is there something we can do about the feedback? Where's that
really
coming
annoying.
from? Pardon?
Yeah, I was looking for the guy. Let me try to find him.
It's
stand back at the back of the room, probably.
Seriously.
I didn't know if you were wearing something that was doing it.
I don't even have my phone on me, so.
Okay. All right.
Okay. So, in terms of compensation review, compensation review addresses individual compensation concerns related to the equity based on job responsibility. So, the process for that, the employee's manager submits the request, and it has to have the endorsement of the ED as well as the chief of that department. And then the individual's compensation is analyzed and benchmarked with the internal incumbents as well as the market, if applicable, depending on the position. And then recommendations based on the analysis are provided to the Compensation Review Committee for a vote. And so we meet quarterly and then look at the data that's been provided by the compensation team, and then based on the vote determine whether or not that compensation review is approved for that individual employee. Increases, if it is approved at the committee level, are implemented within 60 days of the meeting, but we do not pay retroactively. Department reviews look at an entire department. So if you have essentially more than 2 employees in a department that want to be reviewed, we look at the department as a whole. And the department review process has to shift to be part of the budget development because, as we know, many dollars are tied to an entire department review. And we got into a situation this past year where one department was not reviewed as part of the budget development process, and so those funds were not accounted for. And we know once you shift an employee's salary, that's a cost that never goes away. So it has to be part of the district budget development process. And so the department reviews for submissions where chiefs want the entire department looked at or entire segment of their division, that will go to the Compensation Review Committee, but it's a much larger undertaking, as we know, because you have many more employees that you're looking at. And then individual adjustments are applied based on job code and what the market says, etc. For our alternative certification program, essentially it's an educator prep program that's approved by TEA and governed by TAC. We are fully accredited, primarily self-funded, and approved to offer over 50 certification areas. We just had an audit this last spring that came back very well and had 100% compliance there. Yes.
So what percentage of our teachers currently came under alternative certification?
Out of the entire teaching body? Would you have an estimate, Dr.
Ballpark, I'm not to pin you down, but
Just our alt cert or any alt cert across the state?
It's district, right?
Any.
Any
I'd like
officer.
to know any.
It would be upwards, I would say, Tony, in terms of alt cert from anywhere across the state, 40 to 50%.
Easy.
Yeah.
New hires.
Mm-hmm.
of the new hires or of the teaching population?
It would be of new hires because depending how long someone's been here would determine if that was an option and what options were available at that time.
So more and more people coming in, a higher percentage of new hires are alternative certification.
Correct.
And a portion of that is TFA.
Correct.
Okay.
TFA?
Teach for America.
Okay.
And how many do we certify? How many does the district certify last year? How do you have a ballpark?
Hundreds. So,
Several hundred.
We have this year, this current 13-14 school year, right at 600 interns.
and
They are inclusive, TFA or interns, TFA participants.
So 600 of the new people that started this year in DISD are
which is
AC.
right, which is
From us.
approximately 1,800 new hires.
And I can tell you that more than 50%, in the last set of data we received from TEA, about 60% of all new teachers in the state of Texas are coming from the 105 plus alternative route programs.
So yes, it's a huge shift, and Texas is unique in comparison to other states because other states don't offer the level of alt cert programs that we do here. And so alternative certification, the priority is to really assist with staff in critical shortage areas. So you won't find a lot of physical education teachers or art teachers or things like that. We really specifically use a program to target bilingual math science. And of course, there are other high needs areas. Like, we've had an unbelievable amount of secondary English openings. So of course, we would funnel them through, that path as well. So in terms of the internal service fund, this just kind of shows you the figures from 12-13 and how those amounts were broken out by section.
You just lost me. So we're talking about, are we still on alternative certification?
Correct.
Okay.
So there is essentially a tuition associated with going through alternative certification for the services provided in the training and support modules through our program. So
What is the amount for
Per person?
per person?
It's $3,500 for the training fee and $600 for the mentor. So a total of $4,100.
For 1 year.
Yes.
And then they're done if they pass?
If they are certified at the end of 1 year, then that's it. If they receive a second or a third year, then it's an additional $1,600 for each of those years. And they cannot go further than more than 3 years. That's state law.
And they pay that, or the district pays that?
they pay it.
They pay it.
They have more out-of-pocket costs than that. This is just what they pay the district, because they have to pay
For
for
testing and that sort of
testing
thing.
and
Yes.
and don't they also have to take some class through Texas Women's or something?
Only our international interns take 1 3-hour graduate course through TWU. We're delivering now all the other interns.
So that's included in the 4,100.
No, that's,
Oh.
that they have to take it.
Okay, so there isn't. So this is just the income you have coming in, but the actual person trying to become alternative certified has another.
Additional expenses?
Yeah.
And what's the starting salary for an ACE, coming in wanting to be an AC, given our...
Beginning teacher salary.
It's 46,000 and change, but these costs would be deducted.
Right. Okay.
Correct.
I have 2 questions.
Yes.
While they're going through this certification, are they in the classroom?
Yes.
Okay. And then what percentage of our interns are international students or international interns?
To be honest, I would have to figure that because one is bilingual doesn't mean you're international. But I do know this year we provided to the talent division about 20. But sometimes people who still consider themselves international, even if they came to us with a work authorization already.
What fund does the $4,100 go into? General operating or what?
No, it
Goes
goes.
into internal service fund for alternative certification. Alternative certification does not have general operating fund. Any
It's
general
all
Okay,
title,
so
yes.
the staff and all would be paid out of this?
Yes.
Correct.
One of the earlier slides, I think, said they're self-funded. Okay.
Well, I probably missed that. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Sorry.
You're fine.
All right. Excuse me.
So the current status of the program and priorities, we have a small bilingual cohort beginning later this month. As you know, we have a high bilingual teacher need, and so we are working year-round to fill as many bilingual classrooms as possible. We will have a major effort this spring and summer on critical shortage areas, as we do every year, and working with agencies to identify the DACA candidates for bilingual education, who would be eligible through employment now through that new law, essentially.
How many people are actually going to be in the cohort this time? Do you know yet?
In the January cohort or the spring cohorts as a whole?
As of today, we still are processing. We have about
69.
69.
Yeah, 69 as of last week. So
So I'm sorry, how's that number so readily? I don't know that number.
Oh, it was
We were in
at the
another
board
meeting, sorry.
Okay, that's all right. I was,
You're smart. It is.
I know, I was not listening.
Top of there. Okay.
Yeah, so that's the number of bilingual vacancies we had as of a week ago was approximately 69. So that 16 will reduce us into 50-something vacancies. So opportunities for growth, bilingual, I think that's going to be a standing opportunity for growth with the shifting student population and our students' needs for bilingual teachers, as well as our dual language programming that continues to expand across the district. We're also working on streamlining systems both internally and externally, just in terms of how we receive applications, applicant tracking, the data we can pull from the system, payment methods, all of those things that can expedite the process for alternative certification processing. And then candidate communication efforts when they're applying to the program, for them to know where they are in the process, what the appropriate next steps are. As you all have outlined, there are multiple steps to get into the program, multiple payments that you have to make, multiple tests that you have to take. So there's quite an extensive checklist that you have to help candidates really maintain if you're going to get from start to finish.
Go ahead, Susan.
I probably should know this, but is human capital management different than recruitment and hiring?
No, they're a segment of our division.
So is that something, a focus of yours, or could you give a brief snapshot of how things are looking in terms of addressing issues with campuses that are looking for someone and maybe they have somebody that's lined up and then it seems to take months to work them through a process and we wind up losing folks?
Sure. So recruitment is, we have a team that's called Talent Acquisition that has 6 recruiters. Recruitment lied dormant in the district for a couple years prior to my arrival. I got here about a year and a half ago. And so, as you know, that was a major pain point. If you don't have a recruitment arm for a district this size, it's going to be very tough on principals to fill their positions with all their other responsibilities. So once we basically revamped recruitment and brought it back online, we also have a manager that's specifically over that effort. So they're focused on recruiting talent for all teaching positions, as well as the visa process for our candidates who are our employees who are on H-1B visa sponsorship. The process we have put in place to assist principals with staffing their positions beyond job fairs, we moved job fairs to an invitation-only format because we centralized the teacher selection process, where centrally we will vet teacher candidates. So one of the frustrations for principals was they'd have candidates come to their door who didn't have cert, couldn't pass a background check, were not well qualified for the positions they had open, etc. So the centralized teacher selection process took away a lot of kind of the wasted time that was being spent, and so we review all the applications that come in and have group interview sessions, phone interviews, etc., create a vetted pool of applicants. And so currently for the mid-year process, we have a document that we maintain, and we send principals weekly status reports now every Friday to let them know where their candidate is in the process if they've been recommended, or if they're seeking candidates for an open position. We have a spreadsheet that we maintain with weekly applicants who are eligible for hire for that certification area. And so that has improved our relationship with schools in terms of better meeting their needs, their hiring needs. There's some training we have to do in terms of the use of technology with some of the systems we're using, like our applicant system, AppleTrack. A lot of people do not know how to use AppleTrack. There was never a district-wide training, which presents its own challenges if you're trying to look for applicants but you can't get through the system. And in addition to that, we are also issuing early contracts this year, which will lock in candidates of high potential. So, for example, we have student teachers in our district, almost 100 of them this spring. Those are prime candidates who work on your campuses all spring. We want to lock into the district, especially your critical shortage ones. And then we'll work with principals to find assignments because, as you guys know, we have a no forced placement policy. But you know, a recent college grad from SMU, TCU, TWU is going to be better than the person you find in October from who knows where, who's just unemployed and looking for a teaching position. So those are some of the efforts we have put in place. We have a recruitment schedule that spans throughout this spring. Recruitment really picks up in K-12 in February and spans really heavily through April, and then it kind of dies out just because of college calendars and that sort of thing. So we have various recruitment activities planned. We have job fairs that have already been scheduled. We'll be sending out a save the date this week to our principals for all spring dates. And we'll continue to be open to their feedback in terms of what ways better to support them. When I got here, it took anywhere from a few weeks to 4 to 5 months to get someone hired, which is embarrassing to say the least. And you can imagine how many strong candidates we lost because they gave up on Dallas ISD because it was a black hole.
Trust us, we know.
So, we have put pieces in place. Our expectation as a team is now within 2 weeks that someone gets through the process. Now, of course, there are things that could hold people up, such as you don't have certification, so we now do statements of understanding. So let's say your test is scheduled in 3 weeks. We will say you are eligible for hire if you pass your test in 3 weeks. We will wait to hear back from you. As long as you pass, we will move you forward, but we'll do everything else we can in the process. In addition to that, things like background checks or that. If the candidate does everything right, our staff is now equipped to be able to move people through in a 2-week timeline.
And do you have a systematic feedback set up with campuses to find out if what you think you're doing is actually happening and they're seeing it work?
So I will be sending out a survey later this spring. We're too early in the process, especially with 14-15 hiring, but we have a standing meeting now weekly with school leadership to say what are the pain points that exist, what problems need to be rectified until we have the data to drive that.
So this is fairly new.
Yes.
Okay, because I know some stories in the summer
Right.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're probably true.
Well, why don't we, that was a really good topic to branch off on, but why don't we finish the presentation and then we'll take turns with questions.
Okay.
Thanks.
So the last component is the Permanent Substitute Teacher Initiative. And essentially the objective of this program was to respond to campus needs by filling teacher absences. So one of the complaints, I'm sure you guys have heard it, is that when a teacher's out, who they're filling it with is concerning. So this effort is to begin ramping up the quality for who's in the classroom when the teacher is absent. Certified substitute teachers are reporting daily to an assigned campus. So the way our general substitute teacher pool is set up, you're not necessarily certified, but this group of teachers is certified and reports to the same campus every day. And from all of us being students before, we know students often behave differently when there's a person there that's there every single day than the person who's constantly changing and you don't know who's coming in next. So we are hiring the permanent subs through the central office, through our substitute office specifically. Principals can recommend candidates, but it's kind of a meeting in the middle. So we gave them an opportunity for a period of about 2 months to recommend candidates of choice. And then we're beginning to close the gap with certified teachers to fill the other open positions out of this initiative. So there are it's about 119 positions that we'll be filling. So basically, how do we select which schools get a permanent sub, considering I said there's only about 119, but we know we have over 220 campuses. We looked at comparative data from the past 2 years and looked at schools that had greater than 374 yearly unfilled absences for 12-13. And so if schools had greater than 374, they got 2 permanent substitute teachers. So there can be schools in the district that have 2 and another school has 0. It's based on when a teacher is out, is someone filling that absence? You have certain schools where every single time they have an absence, they're going to have someone fill their spot, whether it's principals' previous relationships, whether it's the part of the city, the performance level of the school, and then you have other schools, whenever a teacher is absent, it's hard for them to get a sub to come out and fill that vacancy, that absence that day. We did prioritize improvement required schools regardless of data, as well as Imagine 2020 schools. This is the list of participating schools. Sorry, the formatting moved in columns 2 and 3. And there is a note at the bottom to show you which schools have 2 allocations, which schools were improvement required. And so we had 108 participating schools with 119 positions.
Is that every high school? I counted
It looks
22.
like it.
Just about, yes.
Oh, high school, I'm sorry, yeah.
It is a 1-year contract that's effective for the current school year, and we also looked at this to your previous question about talent pipelines and how we recruit for campuses. If you have a really strong certified permanent sub, that's a no-brainer for an opening that you may have in the next school year. The annual salary is $40,000 with full benefits, which we know is attractive versus a sub-daily rate where you're hoping a job opens up and you're getting $80 a day or whatever the case may be, and you don't know how many days you'll get to work a week. So that is an overview of really the 3 programs: compensation, alternative certification, and the permanent substitute teacher program. And of course, we are available for any questions that you have.
If you don't mind, I'll start. Back on the comp reviews, that's not really a grievance. That's just a comp. And what's the frequency in the whole population? How many people, and what have been the trends? Going up, or pretty much constant?
The compensation reviews during my tenure, and I'd have to defer to Crystal, there's 20 to 30 a quarter that we look at, 20 to 30 individual employees. Would you say that's pretty typical?
That's correct. So for those who may not know, give us an example of a comp review. Is it a teacher or
Anyone. It can. Right. So let's say I'm an executive director. I make $120,000. And I feel like I'm being compensated unfairly in relation to my peers. So I know anecdotally or from data that I've seen that most executive directors are at 135 to 140. But maybe I have more reports than those other executive directors. So I would appeal to my supervisor. If I'm an ED, my supervisor would be a chief and say, would you endorse me going forward for a compensation review? At that point in time, when it reaches the comp review committee, we'll take a look, make sure they meet basic criteria, like you have to have been in that role for at least a year, so on and so forth. We would look at, is that really true? Are they making a 120 and everybody else is at 130, 140? How many direct reports they have? Are they an ED with 0 direct reports? Are they an ED with 10 direct reports and 20 functions? And how does that compare to other EDs in the district? And so based on that information, the committee would review the compensation team's analysis, and then we would perform a vote and say, based on this evidence, would you vote that it should be approved that they raise? So compensation also will give you a proposed new salary based on the evidence, or they'll say their proposal is that the review does not move forward because it's not justifiable. And so then as a committee, we will say, yes, we agree with compensation's recommendation, or no, we don't. If we do, we say, yes, we agree with that price point, et cetera, based on the data, or no, that employee should stay where they are.
And then, so 20 to 30 per quarter, and that's pretty constant, what it's been in years past?
It is. It was suspended for about 2 years. We used to have the comp review process probably about 3 years ago. We suspended it for about 2 years. We just reinstated it in January of 2013. So since then, it's been about 20 to 30 people a quarter. That doesn't mean everybody gets approved, the 20 to 30 people, but the ones that we receive is about 20 to 30 people per quarter.
Okay. And then departmental review, that's like IT. We're not at market,
Correct.
so to speak. Okay. When we laterally hire someone from another ISD, how do you decide where they fall on the pay scale? Just a math teacher.
Well, we have a step schedule. So for a math teacher, it would be based on their service record, how many years they've had, because based on our current teacher salary schedule, the step schedule, it will say, for example, Carmen Darville has 10 years of experience in public education. This can be proven with our service record. We go to year 10, and it would give you the exact amount. So it's pretty formulaic for teachers.
Change. Okay, let's see. And are we still recruiting at colleges and universities with, okay. And I think that's it, other than just this is probably a follow-up question, unless you can answer it off the top of your head. Are you getting the IT needs you need to do all these changes, or is that a budgetary need?
We are working closely with IT. You mean in terms of overhauling our systems?
Right.
Yes, we're part of a HR overhaul, essentially, of our systems. The job code restructure that I mentioned is just one component of many that we're working on. So we've completed a quick wins phase, which were some of the things we get fixed short term. Phase 1 included things like an online resignation form. So a year and a half ago, resignations, you may have heard of them referenced as S54s. They're like this orange sheet of paper that you had to walk to our office in 2013. So now you can log into Oracle and submit it. There are other workflows that we're streamlining. But yes, technology has been very supportive of our efforts.
Marion? Or,
Do we have a marketing department that goes out and, paints, well, we do have a good school district, like pretty pictures, and this is what we have to offer you, and how just really buff that up? Do we have that?
So we're working on it. That's out of the communications branch of the district. So my team, which can be overzealous in a positive way, likes to create a lot of their own materials, but we're working to vet all of those things through communication so we make sure we're on brand and on message. But in terms of recruitment materials specifically, we are looking to overhaul that effort. Our current recruitment materials are not competitive with other large school districts our size. I came from Houston ISD, and so I know the type of marketing materials we use there versus what we have available in terms of like a marketing catalog where you could say, okay, we have these stock things that are available to us that we can push out. Basic things that you can think of, like video testimonies from teachers that would be available on the website to say what their experience is and how great it is in Dallas ISD. Some of those things are not yet available, but we're working towards that.
Like when you send out tweets, I'm on the district and get tweets from the district, but it's never anything about recruiting or how wonderful or how, you can make this salary or alternative certification.
We have a separate Twitter feed. So subscribe to us. And
it needs to be on the district one, maybe. I know it's separate,
right.
But it needs to be on the main one, to send out, even, I know we have a district Facebook, but we need to really beef that up, because I don't think people know the relationships that we have with people who are retired, people who are in the district, parents who, love to have their children in our schools, testimonies from parents, showing schools, showing neighborhoods. Right. Those type of things. So I think that's what we really need to really get all the genres of advertisement.
I would completely agree. For example, on Friday, our 2014-2015 teacher application launched, which is a huge deal for us because we normally don't launch this early. And so, of course, I want to tell everybody, right? And my team, especially the recruitment team, wants everybody to know that you can start applying now and possibly receive a contract for 14-15 in January 2014. Right.
Nobody knows.
Right.
We're back in the dark ages, and I know y'all know it.
Jose, you got anything?
Since we're on compensation, I think benefits is part of the total compensation, and I didn't see anything about benefits here. And I know personally about benefits here at the district, and my wife elects none because they're not good. And so, I don't know. Do we want to talk about benefits? Do we want to see anything about that, or?
Can I share with you some brief information?
Sure.
So with our benefits plan, we opted into TRS Active Care 5-6 years ago. And unfortunately, TRS Active Care is a plan that takes legislative action to get out of. So we lost all of our negotiating power. We have no control essentially over our benefits at this point. So as decisions are handed down by this state-led entity, we can't take action. Like, it's an internal department. Normally you would negotiate. We have 20,000 employees. Here's a more fair rate, or we would go to RFP to find another vendor. We currently don't have that privilege, just so you know.
It seems like somebody's getting money under the table because the plan is horrible.
No one likes our benefits. To be completely transparent, just in terms of copay models and what deductibles are and that sort of thing. We will be taking a proposal to the board in February about an on-site clinic, which would allow our employees to receive some services without a copay under our current benefits
That's
plan.
something we could work with the family clinics, the family and student clinics that are around?
We would actually partner with a hospital, and then we would launch the clinic in a Dallas ISD building. But that would be taken to the board next month.
When are we out from under that agreement?
It's indefinite.
Do we need to write our legislators? I mean, is
Yes.
that something?
Yes, I know it sounds crazy because it is. So where we are currently, the next legislative session, because I was looking into it, is in 2015. So actions that we can take, and I've talked to the superintendent about it as well as cabinet, because it's really a disservice to our employees. So that's the next session. So we are trying to lay the groundwork now in order to be able to have some sort of lobbying presence at the next session.
Kind of breathtaking.
That's a great question. My question really is going to be on how are we. So I mean, obviously we've got this process for looking at how individuals, are compensated relative to their peers and whether they're being equitably compensated. But a year or two ago, we saw some data that indicated that in a number of just broad categories, we were out of line competitively. And as we're moving into this new compensation structure, are we taking that into account? Are you benchmarking all of our positions from, teachers to, office managers to see how we're paying people?
Yeah, it's a huge undertaking with the number of job codes, so we're really peeling it back and prioritize layers. So principal comp was first, teacher comp is next. We're having a conversation about instructional coach compensation. I know I've talked with Chief Paul about custodial compensation. Because there's so many divisions, so many job codes that this applies to, it'll have to be a cabinet level decision, really a superintendent decision in terms of how many of these can you prioritize a year if we're going to make it part of our budget development process. So if we say we're going to shift all teachers, all principals, and all instructional coaches, how much is that going to cost the district? And then how many more can we do in subsequent years?
For teachers' aid, from the analysis he's talking about, we're significantly over on teachers' aides in terms of compensation to our peers, at least what we were shown.
We pay them more than.
Yes.
Okay.
As our teachers were low on the first years, high on the latter years compared to peers. Principals were just even with peers.
It appears like Plano, Houston, or like
Big school
big
districts.
major.
Yeah,
Okay.
big school districts. And then teachers' aides, we are high on what we compensate them. And then I need to send you guys that analysis sheet. But I want to say we're also high in our use of them. So, Lucy.
When I was taking a look at your compensation for just staff, and you mentioned a director, what about teachers, especially with the new teacher initiative? At one point in time, all of this sort of fell under your program. And so if you have any disputes with this new initiative, who will handle that? You said here you will design, implement, and administer the compensation. You would educate the employees, okay? So how is this going to work? Because it's
You mean-
obvious you probably have some disputes.
Yeah. Yes, we have plenty. And with the new Teacher Excellence Initiative, we are anticipating an increase in disputes because once this pay is correlated directly to achievement, especially your student achievement scores, there's going to be pushback, especially if currently as a district, 98% of our teachers are rated proficient or better. So in this new model, there will be a normal distribution, which means you'll have lower performers and higher performers, and people getting paid lower amounts of money and higher amounts of money. And so the grievance process, when it moves from a compensation review to an actual grievance, it will go through our employee relations division, which is another division of HCM.
After you have taken a look at them, or will it go directly to them?
The grievance actually starts through the employee relations branch. It reaches me at a later point in time, but you have your levels 1, 2, and 3 to provide the evidence, etc. But talking with my team historically, that was the biggest challenge with regard to the previous incentive pay program that the district launched a few years ago. Yeah, essentially there were just so many grievances that got overturned that the program no longer had validity. So one of the very important things that I think administration will have to do is truly have board buy-in in terms of, if we move to this model, in what scenarios would it cause there to be a grievance that's honored versus which grievances would not be honored? Because if everybody gets the money that they want, even if they're a low performer, it cancels out the system. Did that answer your question? Okay.
Time.
Oh, I thought you were going to ask her again.
Well,
I was waiting.
I asked the question last time, and I sort of I thought I had the answer. But for the unused sick days that teachers will have at the end of a retirement or leaving the district, how is that coming? Do you think you're going to have enough money to pay retirees, or are you going to pay people who are in good standing with the district when they leave the district but not retire? Will they be paid? If they have 10 unused sick days, will they?
She's got some history where we did pay people, and we've been trying to get our arms around when we eliminated it in 2011.
We really didn't pay. It was like an average, and they got like $1,600 or $1,700 when they retired. In this way, if the teacher has, let's say, 50 unused sick days, well, it seemed as though you're going to pay, what, $50 per day for those days if they not use them before they retire, to keep them in the classroom.
Right, the retirement incentive.
Right.
Now, are you speaking specifically to the retirement incentives, or just in general when people leave, what the payout
Well,
would be?
it can be both. In some districts, for instance, Houston,
You
both.
get paid out.
Okay,
yes.
you paid those employees, if they left the district in good standing, okay, the same amount of money that you paid the people who retired and left the district for those sick days. So, but
We had I mean, if I could step back, and you might know this, but we thought we saw a problem with that affected the classroom. Teachers that were in their last year of service that had accumulated a number of sick days were using them, but they basically forcing the schools to hire substitutes, and so a child in a particular classroom might have a substitute for half the year, and so nothing was happening. And so we attempted to remedy that, but I'm not sure we had a good solution, and so we wanted to see what the state of play is on that. Is that fair?
Yeah, but ahead of that, when we were looking for things to cut in 2011, the discussion was, why are we paying people for unused sick days? And I don't remember what we did, and now we feel like, was there an adverse effect?
So what's
Yeah,
current
because
policy
we
right
want
now?
them in the classroom. Basically, we want them in the classroom. We don't want them to stay at home
Yeah,
because
hence-
they have these days. And, you can use your days, and you go home and you vacate 2 days a week or whatever.
And that's where the retirement incentive was born out of this past year based on the committee's recommendation. So the retirement incentive is not going to be implemented until this spring. The people who would be retiring during this time period. So I don't have the data on it yet, but I can send you the proposal in terms of how much money was allocated to that initiative and that sort of thing. But I wouldn't have a report until later this summer.
So Right. You probably would not know how many of them opt to come to work rather than take those days, because is it $50 a day you're paying them?
We set aside for that initiative is $500,000.
So, yeah. So we don't know how much they will get.
Those considering retirement may already be, since they don't know what the incentive is, they may already be taking their
Yeah, they
days.
just-
So we have been pushing out information. So we
Okay.
have a retirement representative, an employee on our benefits team that's an internal employee to the district, and Mr. Thigpen, and we've pushed it out in the same page and weekly information, that sort of thing, to let people know, hey, don't use your days. You can get money for these days.
They don't know how much money they're going to get if they didn't use those days?
Yes, it's in this proposal. I could send the proposal to the committee for review.
Because it becomes an incentive if you know how much you're going to get.
Correct.
It could just average out like it used to.
I didn't get anything. Like I had 100-something days. I didn't get anything.
I had 183. You didn't get anything
I didn't get
last
one.
year,
I didn't get one dime.
And
Yeah.
about, let's say, 10, 15 years ago, they averaged it out. So they still got money, but it was an average. But if you know that you're going to be paid, quote, $50 or the amount of a substitute, $80, $90, you might opt to come on to work. You know, that's a good little retirement bonus. So, but they need to know the amount per day that they're going to get
So
paid.
you're gonna send us that, and then, okay. Do you
It'll
know
help.
how it compares with our peers? I guess it doesn't matter because
Houston
There.
pays them according to how much they make a day. Correct. And they pay them that whole amount
That's daily rate.
for the days that they do not use. And I said that last year. They pay them the whole amount.
Yeah, and-
If you make $145 a day, you get $145. If you leave the district with 100 days, you get 100 days times $145.
And it's a great incentive across the board.
Certainly
Even as a
is.
central office employee, when I left Houston, I got a payout. So it discouraged me from taking days if I just felt so. I took myself to work because you knew you could use that on the other
And our
end.
kids need
Correct.
the teachers in those classrooms.
y'all have any questions?
You addressed what I was concerned about, getting the process speeded up to get people in our classrooms.
All right, thank you.
No problem.
Thank you, Carmen.
You're welcome.
You came from Houston.
Yes.
Thank you.
No problem.
They're not based on there.
Yes.
District can go spend it. They don't have to.
And get paid more than someone who's been here but
Things is the
didn't,
several in our feeder
because they're giving us stuff increase for free.
They say they're, and then they quit. And so you're totally SOL.
Yeah.
Because
You answered my
it's November and you can't hire somebody.
Right. Yeah, we had those at Withers this year too.
anyway.
Going? Good?
Hello.
Hey?
They would just quit.
Miss Meyer, how are you?
Sick days. Okay, it's good. It's in here. That's good.
They ran out of time. See, Houston has a back.
You get paid those dollars.
Hi, I'm Ann Smisko, Chief of Academic Improvement and Accountability, and we've got, I think, the next two presentations on professional development and the early childhood program. And so I've got my great staff here. I'm going to not say one word because they know everything. Vincent Reyes, who is the Assistant Superintendent for Teaching and Learning, and Alan Cohen, Executive Director for Early Childhood. I think Vincent...
Good evening. We're going to go present on professional development in Dallas ISD. Of course, our professional development is tied to our core beliefs. In this particular case, which two core beliefs do you think professional development might be tied to?
They're highlighted?
Two that are highlighted. Very good. First round of professional development for you tonight. Yeah, so effective instruction makes the most difference in student academic achievement, and staff members must have a commitment to children and commitment to the pursuit of excellence. And so in professional development, we want to provide high quality, relevant, and aligned professional learning sessions to instructional staff. And we want to provide it in a variety of formats, whether it's a face-to-face or a blended learning opportunity. Now, one of the things that is unique about professional development in Dallas ISD, or it has been unique now for a couple of years, is that we have moved away from a required professional development model. Other than compliance or legal-related professional development that teachers or other staff must attend, we do not have a required professional development. For example, all math teachers have to have so many hours of professional development, or reading teachers or other teachers, which is the model that we had in the past. So in the past, we had a 14-hour professional development requirement, which 14 hours roughly translates to 2 days of professional development. Teachers would come to those professional developments many times in the summer. We did away with that. What's interesting about doing away with requiring professional development is that there seems to be a greater want for professional development now. We had pretty good attendance in our professional development sessions when it was required, so teachers did a good job anyway.
So it's always been a local requirement, not a state requirement?
The state does have a requirement that teachers have to have so many hours of professional development. Teachers certified after 2000 or 1999.
That's right. Yeah, it's 150 hours over a 5-year period. And in order to be recertified, to renew your certification, you have to be able to document that you got the 150.
So it was a local district requirement, the 14 hours type requirement. And so you say, well, how does professional development happen? Well, we all know that the best professional development is a professional development that happens at the campus level. And so the campuses have professional development via their principals or their administrative staff and through their instructional coaches. All of our campuses have instructional coaches, at least one, whether it's math or reading, or in some cases even science and social studies coaches. And it's those coaches working with their campus administrative teams to develop professional development plans that are unique and specific to that campus. And then at the district level, what we do in teaching and learning is we support district initiatives through some district-wide professional development. We have intervention-type professional development for teachers that need additional information on key initiatives or instructional strategies, or different things that are coming around the bend. So we still have a role in professional development at the district level. It's just not where, hey, all math teachers come, you're going to do this, and then rarely did it translate to, okay, I'm going to go back and do this in the classroom. Most of the time they'd come and say, oh yeah, this is pretty good, and they take bits and pieces and go do some of it. But this way, it's the principal, the coach, and the teacher at the campus working on the plans for the campus.
So do you have the leadership courses for your instructional coaches?
Yes, ma'am. So the primary role then of teaching and learning staff, meaning math department, science department, social studies, reading language arts, early childhood, those departments then work with what are called academic facilitators. Academic facilitators are roughly 60 staff members in school leadership that oversee the training of instructional coaches. So the 400 or so instructional coaches, then it's a trainer-of-trainer models. Teaching and learning works with school leadership, trains the academic facilitators. The academic facilitators then work with the campus instructional coaches to develop action plans for their campus. And teaching and learning also works with the coaches in many situations. But that's kind of the model that we follow, which is kind of what I have up on this PowerPoint. So then our role in teaching and learning is monthly overviews, monthly sessions, optional sessions that are 2 platforms. There's a virtual professional development, which is cloud-based, and then the face-to-face professional development. We're on the support side of the organization. So we support the executive directors over the feeder patterns with updates as needed, face-to-face or virtual. We have monthly sessions with our academic facilitators, specifically in math and reading, and then we have instructional coach sessions, math and reading, and we also now have some science and social studies coaches. We train them, and then we have the optional sessions for all other teachers that if a teacher wants to come to an optional session.
So does this mean that the principals attend the same sessions with the instructional coaches?
They're invited to attend. Most of the time, they do not. Most of the time, it's because it's during the school day, and so the instructional coaches come for instructional coach training. That's during the school day, so we don't pull principals, but they're always welcome to attend.
Do you ever video any of these sessions, whereas someone could just tune in to see what happened in case the principal didn't go? They could
I don't think we do, but I think that's a good idea. Yeah.
Because, that would help because you want them to communicate the same kinds of things to the teachers, especially with this teacher initiative. You don't want it not to get to the teachers. And the teachers could even look at it if they wanted to.
So for 13-14, which is, of course, the school year that we're wrapping up right now, we had summer content training. So for 2 weeks in the summer, we still offer some professional development in the content areas. So teachers are more than welcome to come. We have, of course, the New Teacher Academy. Now, the New Teacher Academy is mandatory. It is one of the ones that is required for new teachers. So they have to come through 2 to 3 days of professional development with teaching and learning, which is important. They get to review where the curriculum is housed on Curriculum Central and get all the ins and outs, meet the content staff. So that's still required. Fall professional learning opportunities. Again, these are optional sessions available throughout the fall, face-to-face, online, and all of these are after school or on Saturdays. Again, the instructional coach and the academic facilitator trainings. We've already put out the spring professional catalog, and it's the same type of offering before or after school and Saturday sessions that teachers are signing up for. Like I said, what's interesting is, for the most part, teachers are saying we need professional development. Before it was like, oh man, I got to do professional development, right? So it's really exciting to see it grow. Now, it was kind of slow at first. Of course it was. It's completely new. So it's a new process. But they're coming around to attending the sessions. And, in fact, in some cases, we have waiting lists. Alan and his job in early childhood do a great job of filling up those sessions.
We do what we can.
And then the Star EOC Academies, that's a partnership with Region 10. So Region 10 staff comes in and does Star EOC Academies, which are basically updates, reviews on the STAR test system. And teachers, we just had one Saturday at Gilliam Early College, and it was packed. So good turnout there this Saturday. Here's the budget. It's a Title II budget. So we see there that out of the 1.3 million or so, about $1 million of it is dedicated to staff. Now, want to make sure it's very clear. This is not Title II for a professional development department, because we don't have a professional development department. These are instructional specialists that their sole purpose is to develop these optional professional development sessions, especially the online or the virtual professional development sessions, which are extensive and takes a lot of work. So we have those instructional specialists. We also have 2 dedicated coordinators for RTI, which is response to intervention. And their primary job is to go to campuses and work with campus administrative teams to make sure that the state required and nationally required really, but the state required RTI systems are in place at the campuses. And the RTI systems that need to be in place are for the purposes of making sure that students are being properly supported, any student that's having difficulty. RTI is not a special ed function. It's an all-student function. So these 2 coordinators work district-wide with campuses, make sure that they have systems in place to identify students that need additional supports and that they're not automatically tracked into special ed or some other type of program like that.
Is it 2 throughout the entire district?
2 throughout the entire district. Yeah. It's tough.
Is RTI part of No Child Left Behind, or what?
It's part of a state mandate.
State. Okay,
it's a state mandate. I say nationally just because of nationally it's recognized as a best practice. But as a state, schools are required to have RTI programs in place. Yeah.
That's one question. Are you now asking or requiring teachers to teach in small groups in reading or
in our literacy initiative, which is a district-wide reading and writing initiative, one of the best practices is a small group instruction. So do a whole group, you identify students that you need to work with probably in a small group. You can have students working at different centers or stations on their own, on a computer,
That's
or
exactly what I'm talking
or
about.
peer-to-peer. Then the teacher calls over 3 to 5 students and does a read aloud with them, and all that type of best practice. And not just for reading, but really that's best practices in all of our classrooms, math, etc. So that small group instruction is critical.
So are you just requiring it, or are you suggesting that they do it?
We're highly encouraging.
That's
a good way
We're
of
not
putting it.
requiring them, no.
Okay. So who gives them that instruction and how to do it? Because it's sort of sophisticated. You have to know
Absolutely.
how
It-
to do your centers and all that. Who's
There,
teaching
there's a
them?
couple of ways they get it. Number one is the professional development we provide to our reading academic facilitators and instructional coaches, so that they can take those plans back to the campus and begin and work with their teachers. That's one. Our goal there is to really get PD happening at the campus through what we call PLCs or professional learning communities. Then the other route that teachers have to get that type of professional development are these sessions that we have at the district level. So the reading department puts on throughout the fall, throughout the spring now, sessions on after school and on Saturdays for teachers to come and get that. And that's exactly what we focus on. Setting up your classroom environment. How do you set up your centers, your stations? How do you do small group instruction? That's the first thing that we focused on. Yeah. It's a lot of work, though. It really is.
A lot of work, but it's worth it.
So here are the sessions that happened this past summer, and so you can see the number of sessions that we had. You can see the majority of our sessions are in the content areas. Very proud of our visual and performing arts department. They had a bunch of sessions this summer for our band directors and music teachers and orchestra and all of that. So they've really ramped up the effort of providing professional development for our visual and performing arts. So we're excited about that. We served almost 5,000 teachers in the content areas. Remember, this is all voluntary, and we had almost 5,000 teachers this past summer. And then the New Teacher Academy, it's 1,800 plus. I think it eventually went over 2,000
By
for
the end
new
of the week,
teacher.
it kept growing every day.
Yeah, every day it was growing.
So when you say voluntary, this is unpaid. This is people
exactly
coming
right.
in on their spare time and just wanting to do this.
It's really amazing.
That must make you feel very good.
It does. Yeah.
Well, we really, part of what we want to do is people should want to improve their practice, and that's what it is. When you get the choice, when it's your decision, you are going to work to improve your practice. I mean, we all try to. So
Part of that evaluation system has on it other staff development training sessions you've been
Exactly.
in.
the new teacher evaluation, yes, that will be a part of the distinguished teacher review as well. So you're right. That's right. It all ties together.
Are you getting feedback from the participants as far as improvement areas?
Absolutely. We always do a survey. After the session is over, teachers always submit a survey. And, it wasn't, did you like the session? But, we ask for very specific comments. In fact, it's not even multiple choice. It's a box where they actually have to write. And we collect that, and all the presenters review the feedback so that we can improve.
RTI'd.
It's RTI.
Practices, yeah.
It's practices. Yeah.
Oh, getting the response and then improving.
And here are the sessions for the fall, around 5,000 again, instructional staff. So we have multiple sessions throughout the fall. And again, these are all after school, Saturday, or online.
Unless I'm missing it, is special ed blended into this? Special ed training?
Yeah, a lot of the special ed training is required training.
Right.
And so it is not listed on here.
It's not separated out, but it is a part of the sessions that are in the catalog. I know that. So
Yes.
it may just be that you didn't pull out those sessions here, but that's a good question.
Yes.
We do special ed sessions.
Oh, yeah, I mean, it's
Special ed, students that are in the classroom, if their learning styles and are not being addressed,
Oh, yeah.
we're just-
Yeah.
That's a good point. That
It might need to be
inclusion-
on it because it probably needs to be pulled out because the different interventions and strategies that are needed, and also the training, because if you have a child who has I don't know, something, and they just need some special, you need training in that. Can I go get training in a child who has Asperger's?
Yes. The answer is yes. Yes.
And I know
We just
teachers
don't have it.
sometimes feel helpless. You have special ed kids, and it may be they were just labeled and they're really not special ed. How to be able to identify that? What do I do to make sure that all my kids are being learning styles are being addressed?
And a lot of that special ed training is required, and for some reason, we just didn't pull out the special ed numbers.
Because of inclusion, regular teachers will have those students
right.
in the classroom. When you make your count, when you take the count of the number of participants, like 5,000 served, could that be a duplicate of Lucy coming 3 times? A triplicate of Lucy coming 3 times?
I think these were individual, unique,
Unique and not
based on,
the training you just didn't.
Somebody's going to everything.
You're right.
that'd be great.
Yeah, you don't have a breakdown.
I'm almost sure that it's individual teachers. Yeah. Which that puts us at roughly 50% of the teachers are coming to professional development. When it was required, we were at about, the highest I think we ever reached, even when it was required, was like 67. And that's when it was required. And we're not being required to get 50% of them.
How many total teachers are there in the district?
A little over 10,000.
Well, my concern is when they go back, will it make a difference? Because
And that's why we're trying to move it
sometimes
to the
you have
campus.
instructional, coaches now, and that probably will help a lot.
Right.
I don't know if it's on your feedback form, but were they referred to come? They came because someone told them it was a good program.
Or would they refer somebody?
Yeah,
There you
would
go.
you refer some? Both.
Ah.
Good.
Or are you on a growth plan? You have to go somewhere.
Right, growth that you have. See, that has a lot of
That's not on.
I'm not listed.
Growth plan people need to be. They need to
Love
be
having
required
teachers
to
on our.
Great.
And just wrapping up here, you see the Star EOC Academies. These are at all levels, principals, leadership team, and teachers. So very proud of our teachers because they could easily have said, well, it's not required. Or, you know what, if it wasn't any good, it wouldn't be anywhere near 50%. It'd be 20. But so we're real proud of the teachers and really proud of teaching and learning staff. They realize, and there are situations where we just have 5 or 6 teachers show up. And then there are some situations where there's a waiting list. But you still have to show up on the Saturday. You still have to show up after school, and teachers are showing up. So it's a very positive thing.
And I just want to say one more thing about the teaching and learning staff that put this together. I mean, not only are they preparing for the face-to-face, but Vincent just mentioned it almost in passing is the whole online virtual PD. I mean, that's not the same as just taking your notes and standing up and delivering. That takes a whole bunch of time. If you've ever done one of those courses, it takes a lot of time to think about, plan it, make sure the readings are out there, make sure you get the feedback forms. I mean, that is really planning a whole different set of PD, even if it's on the same topic. You've got to do it differently. But I think that spending the time to really get those up and running is so great for our teachers who, maybe you really can't come on a Tuesday or a Saturday or whatever night it is. But you want to get that, and having access to that online virtual PD is just, I think, going to be a big help to many, many of our teachers. So
You can print out a certificate or something. A little bit
yeah, we do. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
they do. When they register, and they register through the website, of course they put their ID number and everything else in there, and it populates a certificate for them. So they get it electronically.
So those that have to keep up with 150 hours have their documentation.
Exactly right. And that's the reason for that. is so that teachers can have that documentation for their certification.
So, when campuses have their staff development days, do you provide a service? Or, I mean, I know sometimes the principals decide what they're going to cover, but is there a relationship with you all?
Yes, there is. There will be some cases where staff is invited out especially special ed is often invited out. Our bilingual department is often invited out, and we'll go. A lot of times we'll have to say, we've already been called to another campus because you guys may recall the budget reductions or the staff reductions to teaching and learning, so we can't cover everybody anymore. But there is that relationship, and I know that our health and PE department on those staff development days will often offer a district-wide PD so that those health PE teachers on those campuses can come to a district-wide event, because they, as you guys know, have a very unique need compared to what the math and science teacher are getting with the principal. And then we're also doing that with our visual and performing arts, our band directors and music teachers and all that. So they get some unique experience on those staff development days. But for the most part, it is the campuses that drive those days.
And then the people who, I should have asked it earlier, but I guess it's HCM that would offer like sexual harassment training or that kind of stuff? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we do strictly math and science. The closest we get to that is health.
Yeah, I guess I got a little feedback that there could be some consolidation in terms of how much time, when you're doing it anyway, consolidation of instead
Some of those required trainings, you mean?
Right. And then why are some of the trainings during the school day? And so we're putting a substitute in place for someone to attend?
No, that's just for the coaches.
Okay.
We do not pull teachers during the school day.
Okay. Even the new teachers, because I know that happened a couple of years ago. No longer do that.
The new teacher academy is for 2 weeks in the summer before school starts.
It brings up a question I was going to ask, which is, one of the things that the commission was focused heavily on a couple of years ago was the amount of time teachers were out of the classroom. Yeah. Who's tracking that?
The amount of time teachers are out of the classroom?
Right.
I'm not aware of any tracking of that. Are you, Vincent?
But you're saying it's not happening anymore.
Oh, not for PD.
PD.
Yeah, not for. Yeah.
And if I recall correctly, it was in the area of professional development where we were pulling teachers out.
Yeah.
Substitutes in there.
I'm not sure I knew all the reasons, but I would love to see a comparison of this year, how much time teachers were out of the classroom. And I don't know, maybe one way to measure that is just how many substitute days did we have. But I want to see whether we're improving, because the commission felt, I certainly felt, that one of the things that was holding us back was teachers being out of the classroom. Whether it was for sickness or for professional development, just in aggregate, what we talked about earlier with the retirement issues and the accumulated days was a factor in that. I'd love to see whether we're making progress on that.
I know we did a presentation on that specifically, got some data. Let me see if I can revise that data and bring it up to date and kind of give a comparative analysis of maybe this year.
It's not that old.
It's not that old.
It's been share with.
So.
Same thing for principals not being able to be on the campus.
Meetings you mean tracked.
I think that's another
big issue.
Were you trying to show us some fun stuff on the computer screen?
I was going to pull up. So what's the day? Monday? So we have this site is for principals and executive directors, so at a glance they can see what's going on as far as professional development. So if you're a dance teacher, you might be at the state convention right now. And then you can see here tomorrow there's training on the revised math standards. So the state rewrote the math standards, and so we're trying to train teachers on catching up with that. So at a glance, principals and teachers can take a look at this and see everything that's going on.
District, or is that?
These are the district sessions.
And those are hyperlinks to describe what's
here. So teachers will compare current math standards with revised standards to identify, define, whatever the rest of that is.
And so is that just something this is one of the online version ones? Because there's no time for it?
No time, that might be online.
That's correct? So this is something they can access. So why does it have a date?
Planning period.
Some of this is online, live, like a webinar.
Okay.
So they would log on. Yeah.
most of
So
them
this
are
is just a snapshot of it.
after school.
Yeah,
These
the
are all even after school and Saturdays.
Are we copywriting the things that
good idea.
you're doing, and then maybe trying to? I mean, if this time and energy is going into it, that a smaller district might contract to purchase some of this kind of stuff from the DISD. That
I mean, are we creating this, or are we?
A lot of this we're creating. So, for example,
it's an instructional.
But conversely, why are we inventing it? Because it doesn't exist elsewhere?
that's part of it, and
How often do we first look to see if someone else has already done it?
we do that. And there's a lot of budget questions that come up. Can we afford to purchase this district-wide? How do we keep it up? Is it going to be just a one-year purchase and then it goes away and teachers stay at the most? So a lot of this is building resources and support that belong to the district, and so we can use them year after year.
Looks like it might be worthwhile looking at if a proposal was made to say if there was one person that could be hired, could that job pay for itself by taking the task? Because you don't want the teachers to be the instructors to be the one that is then saying how do we copyright this or market it or whatever. But if somebody else could do that and it would make their salary plus something, I mean it's a PR thing plus.
Exactly right.
Or you
Think that.
you have an exchange with another district.
And I was also for teachers, for somebody that say, are there incentives or compensation or some sort of maybe not reward but just benefit if somebody says I really want to learn more about this, and so there's this college class and I'm going to pay for it myself, but it's not something, and yeah, they're going to get that credit, but does the district do anything to encourage that kind of stuff?
They might eventually
Not right now, but that is a part of the new Teacher Excellence Initiative, the new teacher evaluation systems. When that gets up and running, assuming the board approves it in May, that's what we're hoping beginning next year. Will teachers who get to a certain point in their evaluation will become eligible for what we're calling a distinguished teacher review, and that's where that would come in. Somebody who had gone out and worked on, we're looking for leadership, lifelong learning, and contributions to the profession in that distinguished teacher. And so that's where that would go. And the teachers who might want to, maybe somebody wants to create one of these online sessions for a Tuesday or a Saturday, or to put it on the website or something like that, and then we would review it, and then that could become part of their contributions to the profession. So we're looking to incentivize that in the new teacher evaluation system.
I just want to know what qualifies a instructional coach.
So those are hired by the principals, and so the principals have to really select the best teacher that is also a coach, not like an athletic coach, but that can coach others, which is, you might have someone that's a really good teacher that doesn't necessarily make them a good coach.
So in essence, that person would have worked on that campus prior to being a coach.
Not
Unnecessarily.
so there's no codification of it. There's no rubric set up right now. Or?
Yeah,
you
that's
worked
what I
on
was just.
that whole- yeah, good.
Yeah, so this summer when we started the whole instructional coach process, what we developed is a way that a teacher or a person that wanted to be an instructional coach and applied for the position had to submit a video. And so the principals had like a dashboard of all the applicants so that they could preview the candidates before they hired them. And they were asked some very specific questions about instructional moves, about content knowledge and things like that, so that the principal kind of get an idea, would this person make an effective coach? So that oh yeah, they do apply. Oh yeah, absolutely. So that criteria then is spelled out, and a lot of it has to do with how effective are they with instructional moves, meaning how can they help teachers in the classroom get those small groups together, or how can they recognize oh, when I asked this question, I could tell that these students did not get it. And that's an art. To be able to ask a question and recognize, these 2 or 3 aren't getting it. Or nobody got it, I better redo the whole thing. So that,
Know it before I talk.
yeah. So that's the type of criteria that's kind of spelled out. A couple of things, and then we'll move on to early childhood. So this is where we're moving, is professional development that is personalized. So let's say I'm a math teacher, so I go to professional development. I click on math. Well, in the past, I would go to an elementary math session. So I might be in there with a 3rd grade teacher, a 5th grade teacher, kindergarten teacher. Where we want to get is, not only am I a math teacher, I'm a 3rd grade math teacher. So I go to 3rd grade math, and when I go to 3rd grade math, there are unique professional development sessions just for me. And so that's a lot of work. And so you can say it's still under construction. So we're getting there to where we're developing virtual professional learning communities, which is a blended learning, which involves some face-to-face, some online, and then DTube, which are just basically instructional videos. So that's where we're headed with professional development for our teachers, so that it won't be 100% customized, but a teacher we can look at trends and patterns and data and say, wow, our 3rd grade teachers really need something on this, on measurement. And so we'll find resources on measurement so they can go and look that up for themselves.
So Vincent, I select one. I mean, do I have to register so you capture my name and everything so you have a record of that electronically?
Yeah,
or they just get a certificate at the end?
It'll go through my e-learning, my Dallas ISD. So when they log in here, their username and password is their, what we call their EAD. I'm not even sure what EAD stands for, but it captures who they are. So it'll capture such and such teacher from such and such elementary, and then that's how they get their certificate. Yeah. So it takes them right to this site. So the drawback is they have to log in again, but you just have to do it.
Do you ever do anything, the Khan Academy model where they you do your homework is actually the lesson, and then you come into the class and do do you do something like, have you ever done that kind of a thing where you have
Flip classroom?
Right, where you have them, they do this thing online, and then on Saturday we get together and...
That's our virtual PLCs, what we call VPLCs.
So that's the process? Mm-hmm. Oh, cool.
That's so for teachers, it's kind of a flipped classroom. So they have an instructional video they have to watch, and then at the end of the video they get an assignment, and they take that assignment and they have to do it in their classroom. For example, try some questioning techniques or a certain strategy, and then they get together with their other math teachers, science teachers, social studies teachers, and dialogue around what happened in the classroom. That's the most powerful PD. All the research says this: the most effective professional development is when there is teacher-to-teacher interaction at the campus level. Not the teacher-to-teacher interaction at a meeting downtown, at the campus level. When that interaction happens at the school, when 2 teachers are dialoguing about instruction and not about the dumb bell schedule or whatever, and they're dialoguing about instruction, now you'll get movement on that campus.
Is this revolutionary? I mean, this is really new for the district.
The VPLCs, we did them a few years ago, and so it all depends on the climate that something comes out in, And so we're in a place right now where I think we can really push the envelope.
At the very beginning, talking about the job embedded professional development. I think that change as the new administration came in, that change made the difference, because you're trying to get that conversation going at the campus level, and these VPLCs really enhance that idea. So.
And then the last thing is, so here's Curriculum Central. It houses all the curriculum documents, the curriculum maps that the teachers use and things like that. Here's a new tool that we're working on for this year, and these are called our digital CPGs. And so I'm going to pull up the grade 5. These documents were intended for those teachers that are new to the district or new to the profession, as well as veteran teachers can use it if they like. But it has on there, if you will, a complete menu of what would be needed to be an effective teacher. So what do I mean by that? So we have the standards. We have some sample lesson objectives and instruction and multiple response strategies and demonstrations of learning, all aligned to standards. so that teachers can begin to see, how do I take a standard and how do I build it out into an effective lesson? Well, that's all fine and dandy. What else? Here are some instructional considerations, specifically some teacher notes, some model lessons. So here are some, based on the standards that are on this document, here are some model lessons that you can plug and play with. I mean, if anything, you might screw it all up, but at least it's a model lesson that kids are getting some good stuff. Some resources, but here's the PD part, the virtual support for teachers. So this column here has either videos or articles that are intended to be embedded professional development aligned to the topic or the standards that they're teaching. So we have instructional strategies videos, and we have background or content building videos, because we may, especially at elementary and sometimes in high school, we may have teachers that are not necessarily very strong in a particular content or a concept within a content. So we embed videos into the curriculum doc. So all they have to do is click, and the YouTube video comes up, and here is a geometry transformation video that the teachers can watch.
Is this?
Why don't we teach our kids?
You had mentioned substitutes will be paid like $40,000 a year, and et cetera, to keep them in the
This is
school.
the permanent subs that Carmen talked about.
Will
Yes.
will they be taught or trained to use this, and go through
There'll be teachers too.
the
Yeah,
teachers?
that's the whole idea, is to get them into the buildings, have them have a home, have them be part of the team. So yes,
So they'll have the training as well, teacher training.
all that will be available to them as well. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh,
They won't have a permanent classroom.
Right.
huh?
They won't have a permanent classroom.
Right, but they can go to the leadership trainings and things like that.
So, earlier in the year when rolling out the new teaching methodologies and demonstrations of learning and all that, there was a lot of frustration among the teachers because someone would come in to do a review and they'd say, you should do it this way, and they'd try to do it that way, and somebody else said, no, that's wrong. Was that a lot falling on you in terms of, were you responsible for aligning that and helping everybody understand what
Dr.
the...
Smith.
Yeah, right.
No. Yeah.
Really, that was a partnership with school leadership and the teaching and learning folks. It's true, it's new. People don't really understand it at first, but that first year we had a lot of work that the executive directors, the principals, and then of course we didn't have instructional coaches that first year. This is the year we got the instructional coaches, and that's added value as well because they're much more cognizant of how that should work. But it's also year two of DOLs and lesson objectives and that sort of thing. But yeah, teaching and learning did a lot of this work along with professional development around what that should look like and what some examples are. I'm sorry, I keep
So
talking.
what we did in support of school leadership, the primary professional developer in the district is the principal.
Yeah.
The campus administrative team are the primary professional developers. So what teaching and learning then does is support that. So how do we support that? Well, for example, here you see a sample demonstration of learning. So we develop curriculum docs, and we have a whole bunch of them actually, that are just a ton of sample lesson objectives, sample demonstrations of learning, so that then administrators, executive directors could pull that up and begin to calibrate. Okay, so yeah, this is effective. No, you need to make this a little bit more rigorous, and then take that dialogue to the teachers and begin to dialogue and calibrate so that then everybody's on the same page.
How do we know that? Because this is, as we roll out the Teacher Excellence Initiative and pay may become a part of that, it only becomes that much more important so that we don't have misunderstandings, about what people thought they were supposed to be doing, and then they were trying to do something that someone else had told them. Misalignment, really, if that's the right word. How do we know we're doing better and that we're solving this problem that was, so much in evidence last year?
I think it's the data from the spot observation forms. So the spot observations forms that the administrators use, they go into the classroom, and they have the rating system, and so the principal will go in there But at times, the executive director will also go in. Not at times, a lot of times.
They,
really.
they're doing a lot
They
of
do a lot of spot observations. So then, okay, so what did you give this teacher on multiple response strategies or DOLs? Oh, I gave them a 1. Okay, why did you give them a 1? Because I gave them a 1.5 or a 2. And they can begin to dialogue. Oh, I didn't think about that. Or, yeah, that makes sense. Or they might just say, you know what, I think you're wrong. You know, that kind of, but at least that conversation is happening, so then we begin to calibrate. Now, the reason I think we're doing a better job this year is, number one, we're not hearing as much about that as we did last year. So 2 things happen. Either we're getting better or people gave up. And I don't think, you know, if you look at the resiliency of our teachers and our students in our district, we don't give up easily in Dallas. So I don't think that's happened. The other thing is the data trackers that we have for the spot observation forms are the gap between those areas has closed. So one of our departments in teaching and learning, educational technology, works with school leadership to online be able to track spot observation form data. So we can get a snapshot by district, by division, by feeder pattern, by campus, where those ratings fall on those spot observations. And they're all fairly consistent.
Just one question.
I forget which survey the data. So how did Dallas do versus other major urban school districts? And I think we were doing, just broadly speaking, sort of okay in math, and we were hurting maybe in the reading and writing area. And I have no educational background, but it just seemed to me that, you know, after we increased the student-teacher ratios, that it was particularly bad for writing. You know, I just do some quick math on the high school side. We took away a planning period, so now a high school teacher has got 7 periods, average of, I forget, 25 students in the class. So you're carrying 175 students. If you assign an essay, right, students to write something, if you spent 1 minute evaluating those essays, that's 3 hours worth of work, okay, and you can't do anything in 1 minute, right? But if you spent 3 minutes an essay, now you've got 9 hours worth of work. I mean, there's just no way a teacher. So what happens? The writing isn't assigned, and I, as a parent, I experience that. My kids just don't have enough writing assignments. It seems to me, anyway. So, do you share that view? I mean, what do we? Can we correct that with technology, or is the only way to correct that to change the student-teacher ratio on the language arts side?
Or, I asked the question of Dean Chard.
What did he say?
You don't have to grade them all.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's a,
Grade them by. You can grade them by lottery.
so one of the best practices in writing instruction is to monitor and adjust the students' writing as they're writing. To not wait until the very end to have to do this massive review of the essay. Now, yeah, you'll probably have to review it and grade it. But along the way, there, in that writing process, there should be a couple of things happening. Number one is the teacher dialoguing with a student or a group of students as they're developing their essay, so that they can point out or ask questions, well, how else could you write that? Or is that really based on what you read in the story? So they can begin to ask those questions. That's one way. The other way is peer editing. You know, how, when, and you hear, it's not going to happen the first day of school.
Wince out loud at that? The kids don't know how to do peer editing.
Well, that's what I was just about to say. That's not going to happen that
You
first
have to
6
train
weeks of school.
Yeah.
It might not even happen the second 6 weeks of school. But as you move into the school year, what an effective writing teacher should be developing writers. So those students, as they move along in the school year, should be able to peer edit and begin to at least assist in some level.
With rubrics.
With rubrics.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
they
with
know what
criteria
they're
charts.
looking for.
Yeah.
And I read that. Vince read mine, and he says, you know, Ann, I didn't see your opening, you know, I didn't see an opening sentence in any one of your paragraphs. You just, it's stream of consciousness, you know, what do you think? So, I mean, but it does take a skilled teacher and a group of, you know, that really works with his or her students over time to build that. You know, first of all, it's a state of mind among the kids that, you know, that's how I do my writing. It's not, I write a bunch of stuff and I send it off to the teacher and I get a, you know, A, B, or C. I mean, that's not really helping you improve. what helps you improve is that kind of constant feedback. Vince will read something I write, or I'll read something he writes and say, I understood paragraph 2, but I have no clue what you're talking about in paragraph 3 or whatever. You know what I'm saying. But yeah, it's a change of thinking about writing and the process of writing and what's important. But the
And
literacy
technology
and
helps as
technology,
well.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna
Go ahead.
do my Google plug.
Or SharePoint. Google or SharePoint. Go ahead.
My oldest son is a freshman at A&M, and so he's having to write probably more than he's ever written in his life. But we do everything over Google, and he writes and he shares it with me, and I comment. And he's like, Dad, why don't you just write this for me? I'm like, no, I'm not gonna write. Jack, I wrote the entrance essay. I ain't gonna write nothing else. Anyway.
You really wanted to get that kid going.
So how do you use technology? Well, writing process programs. What are they called? Like a Google or SharePoint or something like that, where the teacher can begin to digitally comment, say, I'm not sure that makes too much sense. What do you think about this? So using technology could help in another way.
I've got another website for you. Have you seen Grammarly.com?
Grammarly? No, I haven't seen it. I love all
once
that.
you sign up, these little icons come up when it questions what you're doing.
I think sometimes we don't start the writing process early enough.
Yeah.
And the fourth grade teachers have a hard time. And it really could start in kindergarten,
Our kids were writing.
But
The fourth grade writing.
just not starting it early enough. Critiquing, editing, even younger students can edit a sentence.
Sure.
But and going back to
Hear it
Jen's
on it.
point, though, it is overwhelming
It makes sense.
for
Can
our English
action
teachers.
of that sentence.
You have 150 plus kids. At some point, you're going to have to grade an essay. You're going to have to grade their essay. So it can be
Don't
overwhelming.
become a writing teacher if you don't want to read anybody's writing. I mean, but still, it's a big job. There's no question.
But the textbooks include the editing, the self-editing.
Yeah, the textbook that the district adopted, the Right Source.
Right source.
Yep.
I'd love it if every DISD student could graduate knowing how to write a thank you letter and an
Yes.
application letter. I mean, if that would be huge.
Well, actually, the application letter, what do we call that document that we worked on at every
Portrait
grade?
of a Graduate?
Portrait of a Graduate. Portrait of a Graduate. Vince's team worked on, at every grade level, what should kids really, what are the key things they need? And the college application letter, I'm pretty sure,
That's
made its
exactly
way into that, I forget, 10th or 11th grade
But a
year.
thank you letter
Thank
too,
you note.
just a thank you note
Work on that one.
regarding.
And they learn that when they
They
take
can
the
start
time
that
to
in
thank a
kindergarten.
speaker that comes for their school.
right.
We used to do that.
Right.
Back to the budget, or
We had a
um,
Much fun.
who covers the technology training? Your department or Gray's? Okay.
We do the teacher training on how to use technology for instruction.
Oh, but not how to use.
Use SharePoint or Outlook and all that.
Okay, and then I guess I saw an example of it here when you pulled up a video that couldn't have been created here. So you are looking for all these other sources. It's not all created here.
That's correct. TeacherTube, Khan Academy, several different places where we try to find quality videos that are aligned to the standards.
And then how much do we find out what Irving's doing or Plano's doing or Houston's doing? How do you have those what are those relationships?
They're actually quarterly. They're about quarterly. The Urban Curriculum Council.
Okay.
So we go to a meeting in Austin with all the large urban curriculum directors. So Austin, Houston, Fort Worth,
Garland Richardson.
yes, Garland, Richardson, San Antonio, Corpus Christi, Brownsville. We all meet and we discuss items like this and new graduation requirements and all that. So there's a constant, and then we'll periodically get an email, such and such from such and such district would like to know how are you guys handling this situation.
I just, it's all state money. I don't know why we don't open it up to everybody, but that's
Well,
just my
actually,
opinion.
we're in the process of sharing for assessment items with a
Yeah,
couple
we
of
have
districts.
we'll have a new tool that we can put assessment items in, test item bank. So for 6 weeks tests for the campuses to use, 6 weeks tests and final exams and common assessments if they want to do, anything like that. And yeah, through the Urban Curriculum Council, Austin, Houston, not San Antonio, but anyway, several of us are saying, where do you get your items, and so we have a call coming up to say maybe we can share items and we'll just do an MOU among the districts and, we'll get Houston's and they'll get ours and we can just share our items. So
Give them a user ID or something. So, all right. Well, we probably need to move on.
That's one more question.
Okay.
One more question about science. My concern, from being a science teacher and working in the science department, a while back as a specialist, and we want our kids to do well in reading and math. I know if they can't, read, they can't really, function. But when the students get to high school and they have to pass that science test, and for real, science is like taught. Oh, it's 3 o'clock. Let's do sometimes. My concern is, why are we expecting our kids to do so well on the test or go into STEM, science, math, technology, or have engineers? Unless you go to the science magnet or something, a DESER, our kids are not really being exposed. I mean, has it gotten better?
I think it has, and actually the state assessments are what have helped us. And here's why I say that. The grade 5 science test assesses grade 3, grade 4, and grade 5 standards. So if you don't teach that 3rd grade science, and you don't teach 4th grade, your school's going to suffer on the overall test.
Do you think they're really looking at, because I know about the 5th grade state text, I helped write that. It was like 5 of us that helped write those texts. But are people, I know they don't pay attention till high school. I mean, really. And that's my concern about our kids are, not pushed. We wonder why our things are going overseas and things are not being, we're just not being developing engineers.
I saw a difference with 2 kids and one who was assessed in science early and one who was not. I saw a change in the curriculum. Alan,
All right.
welcome.
Pity one.
I will fully agree with the sentiment that we can always start younger with our kids.
For everybody, not just a certain portion of society.
Well, good evening, everybody. My name's Alan Cohen. I'm the executive director for the Early Childhood and Community Partnerships Department. As you all know, Early Childhood was given $5 million of new money for the 2013-14 school year. And among the things that the department has used that for is to actually split one department into 2. So a new department focusing just on 0 to 5 years old was created. That is the Early Childhood and Community Partnerships Department, and a second department that focuses on K through 2nd grade, and really making sure that we're creating alignment and not only giving kids a great start in being prepared to begin school, but that we are continuing that education to the point where those children are able to read, to learn on their own independently.
To $5 million additional, that's in addition to how much?
It was roughly 300,000. I tell you, the board really, for the first time in a lot of years, put their money where their mouth is. In other words, everybody always says early childhood is a key. We got to get the. Say, okay, so why does early childhood have a $300,000 budget? So this past year, the board committed $5 million to birth to grade 2 education.
So just to give an overview of the 2 departments, the first department, focusing on 0 to 5, has the mission to maximize the number of children entering Dallas ISD kindergarten classrooms developmentally on track to succeed. I think what's important to recognize there is that does not mean that Dallas ISD is going to do this all on their own. very much is going to be in partnership with many community resources. And while we have traditionally had pre-K for 4-year-olds, we know the developmental importance really from prenatal care all the way through, and we'll need to work with a number of community actors to build a comprehensive plan for how we really do ensure that kids are getting to our classrooms ready. We've allocated $2.75 million of that $5 million to this department and that area of focus. We also have the K through 2 curriculum and instruction, and that mission is to ensure that all of the students in our schools are reading on grade level by the end of 2nd grade. I'm sure many of you have heard this, but up until 3rd grade, we learn to read. After 3rd grade, we read to learn, and it's important that children are starting 3rd grade with the ability to read and to learn independently. We took $2.25 million of the funds and allocated them towards that K through 2 space. The key priorities in the 0 to 5 space for the 2013-14 year is first to increase the total number of children receiving pre-kindergarten services. Overall, when you combine all of our different programs, we saw a 12.9% overall increase in the number of students that were receiving services. This happened based off of a combination of children in our HIPPY program and increased participation in enrollment in our pre-K, traditional pre-K classrooms. We wanted to modify and upgrade critical systems that we'll need to employ any plan. So increase our level of professional development support, specifically in this early childhood and pre-kindergarten space. Really look at our pre-K enrollment process. Things like centralizing a placement list so that we know if a school only has 100 spots but 150 children show up at that school, that we centrally can see where those children are so that we can help direct them to other schools and open spaces. A strong emphasis on improving our data systems. Data is going to be an incredibly important tool for us to understand what quality pre-K classrooms look like, where our greatest needs are, and it's important that we're really getting true data insights. We have a lot of anecdotal data, but we really want to get to real insights, and that takes some fairly extensive capabilities, frankly. And then really look at childcare partnerships. And so right now, just knowing the number of students that are out there and the number of seats that we have available, there's a misalignment. So, in lieu of just saying that we're going to build new buildings and we have a lot of seats in the private childcare world. There are some unique processes that the state has set up for us to be able to work with childcare providers to increase the level of services kids are getting in that environment, and so we want to take advantage of those processes.
Can you just talk about that a bit more? I mean,
sure.
Maybe give an example of one of those partnerships?
Absolutely. So what the state has set up is something that's called the School Readiness Initiative, and that was originally actually set up for special education, but it has been adopted primarily by the early childhood world. And what that's essentially the goal is to say that funding for early childhood comes from several big sources. So there is state funding that we primarily receive as a district through ADA. There's Head Start dollars that flow into our community. There is voucher dollars that flow through the Texas Workforce Commission. And this essentially is a system to say, hey, if we can extend some of the district services into environments that are not 100% district environments, that we might be able to braid some of that funding. So if we put a teacher into a third-party center and that teacher begins to employ some of the DISD curriculum for students in that center, then we can actually dual enroll the children and bring ADA funding into the community and pass that through to the child care provider so that child care provider can improve the quality of the services that these kids are receiving.
Just kind of like the Y and Rice Elementary, I think, over here off of in South Dallas. That partnership is that
that's a form. So there's not one there's not one rigid model for SR. It actually is a fairly fluid set of criteria that you must meet. So that's a good example. We have several partnerships with Head Start centers, both some that come into our schools and some where we are going into the Head Start center. So a lot of our attention is working with our legal team, working with the child care groups, and figuring out how much flexibility those partnerships have. How do we optimize this process? Because it really does behoove the district for a number of reasons to have partners wanting to work with the district on these types of initiatives, and really, I mean, I could speak for a long time about all the different advantages of getting this particular process right. But this is one of the fundamental levers that we'll be able to pull to try to get a holistic solution for early childhood in the community.
Is it possible to have a list of those partnerships?
Yeah, I could let you know what we're doing right now, and then there's a push for a greater outreach next year.
I should know this. But if we've increased about 13%, what percentage of the kids that like really need early childhood, pre-K 3 and 4, how many slots do we have in the district right now?
So right now in the district, I guess it would be, we're serving 9,500 students. There's about 750 slots that are unfilled currently. And then we would have to really, there are probably a little bit of space that could be converted into classroom space, but those are, the key to understand here is that it's not just as simple as a supply-demand issue. So it's not just, hey, we've got 13,500 kids out there and we need 13,500 seats. It's where those seats exist. And so it's about capacity distribution and then demand distribution. And the key word there is distribution. And so
some buildings just don't have the room.
Right. I'm just looking at just wondering about the numbers. So if there's 15,000 kindergartners this year, then that means last year we had 15,000 kids that might have benefited from
that should have gone
K4.
But that's where the 9,600.
Yeah, about 95 to 9,600. Yeah.
So 9,600 kids are in pre-K, and then when they get to, actually you do the first grade, don't you?
Yeah, I compare based to first grade because that's when we see everything normalize.
Right.
And so what we do is we've looked at cohorts of children, and what we estimate is that there are about 4,000 children out there that are not receiving pre-kindergarten services from the district. However, we are part of our data capabilities, and part of what we're trying to do is stop looking at just who's served or not served by the district, but really try to figure out who's unaccounted for in high quality environments. So if we can start to combine all of the Head Start classrooms that we feel are of a high quality, all of the centers, for example, there's an organization in town called Educational First Steps, which tries to bring child care centers up to nationally accredited standards and tries to maintain a list of those centers that are, even if they don't want to pay the $5,000 a year to get a certificate, at least is able to check that they're maintaining those national credit centers. If kids are in that environment, I'm feeling pretty good about those kids and what they're doing, and try to work with those organizations to get common measurement tools so that, and really look longitudinally at the kids that we're receiving from those different centers over the long haul to make sure that those kids are receiving the same advantages that they would if they were in district. What we can absolutely see, which should make us feel good, is it's not just about supply-demand, but it's supply-demand in a quality environment. And when we recently have looked at the numbers of at least an initial scan of kids that came through pre-K environments in the district versus all children that were not in district and pre-K environments, we are seeing longitudinally that the kids that were in pre-K environments in the district are performing better year after year after year. There is this not just in district but across the nation, almost uniformly, you can just see ROI for investment in early childhood in so many different ways over so many different layers.
Will they still have child find?
That's a special education for the, yes.
But do you do anything looking back, like surveying the first and kinder and first graders and find out where they attended the year before, if they attended somewhere?
So there's a couple things we're doing. So one of the things is part of the changes in the enrollment process is we are trying to figure out a good way as they enter the district. Can we just ask parents some simple questions to find out, even if they just were at anywhere, in terms of having a childcare environment. We for the first time in the district's history or Workforce Solutions are combining data right now. So the Texas Workforce Commission has provided us with the data of all the children that are receiving vouchers in the area. So we'll be able to longitudinally track those children, and even if they don't provide us that information, we'll be able to match those children and see how they're doing based off of different child care providers. Head Start provides us not current, but as soon as they enter the district, parents have signed off on allowing us to do a data share, so they'll be providing that info. And what we're trying to do is not just have a data system that allows us to look at student level insights within the district, but really do a community-wide data system that allows us to get the kind of insights for kids coming from all different environments, so that we can really get insights and we can really get surgical about the dollars that we're spending in the community to maximize the number of kids that enter the district kindergarten ready.
Well, do the students still need to have be within a certain income bracket, and also the language?
Yes, ma'am. There are a number of requirements. So when we talk about 9,600 students that we're serving and a gap, we're talking about a gap of eligible students. And so the requirements are there's an income requirement. So children that are would qualify for free and reduced lunch in kind of a traditional sense. Children that are not English language native speakers, military children, foster children, and homeless children.
So I know there's some that fall through the cracks because they don't meet that. They can't afford childcare, so how are they being addressed?
Yeah, so I think what I would, the way that I would answer that is to say that I think there are a lot of individual issues that we're going to need to address when it comes to this space. And what I want to guard against is doing anything in kind of a ready, fire, aim order. That I think our first step, when we look at the 0 to 5 space, is to go through a holistic planning process and really understand what the levers are. And I think some of this, frankly, it doesn't just derive from data, but it also comes from dollars. And as incredibly generous as it is to provide an additional $5 million to this space, we're not going to solve early childhood education with $5 million. What we're going to be going after are the big buckets of dollars from different sources. So can we get, the 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 million dollars a year from the federal government? What I can tell you is, from an infrastructure standpoint, we as a district leave $60 million on the table every year that the state is ready to provide districts by serving the remaining eligible 4-year-olds and 3-year-olds. So before we worry about the kids that aren't paid for, that we may want to try to figure out what's our plan to get all of the children that are paid for. And other communities don't have that advantage. The state has really done us a service with that legislation. So if you look around the country, there are communities that are trying and begging begging to get that kind of funding.
$60 million.
Leaving on the
Yeah.
So when was this passed?
The pre-K funding's been around for more than a decade. What Alan's talking about is the difference between the kids, the 9,600 kids and the 13,000 that are eligible. The difference there would generate that much money. The kids who are not coming, right?
Not there plus the 3-year-olds.
And 3-year-olds, right.
So what the state says is that you must serve all 4-year-olds that come to your door, and you may serve 3-year-olds, and they are willing to pay for both.
How are you recruiting these 750?
We need spaces.
He's got that on his
Is that on
enrollment
there?
Our
marketing.
right to key priorities.
Got it.
Is the main issue space where the space is needed? We have overall space, but it's not in the right place.
I think it's a little of everything, and like I said, I would be hesitant to say that this is absolutely the driving factor. I think that we really do need a holistic plan that gets very nuanced and very layered, quite frankly.
Well, and three of us have served on the Boundary Commission meeting over the years with Belia and her predecessor, and someone described it as a Rubik's Cube to figure that all out, but I just feel like there's not enough interdepartmental sharing in that.
Yeah, and I mean these are complicated issues. And for example, we all look at San Antonio as a beacon of early childhood. Right now, the issue they're dealing with is, even though they have quote unquote universal pre-K, and it's the issue that's uniting the city, they feel that it's unsafe to use public transportation to bring kids to schools. So even though everyone knows that their kids should be in school, they can't get their kids from the home to the school because they did the infrastructure, the building infrastructure before this big push. So these are very complicated and nuanced issues, and it really does deserve a holistic plan. But we can also walk and chew gum at the same time, so we shouldn't stop doing stuff while we're in the planning process. So, in terms of what we're using the dollars for right now, we had to build a staff for this department. So this one's near and dear to my heart because it provided me with a job. Additionally, one of the greatest one of the greatest returns we get is with our parent engagement programs. So our HIPPY program that actually puts instructors in the home to help parents learn how to be their children's first teacher, which deals with 3, 4, and 5-year-olds. And this year we launched as a startup a program in district called EPIC, Educating Parents to Impact Children, that focuses on parents of children 0 to 2 years old. And so we made a very strong investment there of $1.16 million, and doubling that program. So we went from, with HIPPY, reaching 416 families to now reaching nearly 1,100 families. And EPIC, which runs on a different model, will reach somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,000 families this year. In terms of teacher and school support and professional development, we're making another fairly significant investment of nearly $700,000. We think that among the things that are really important is that there has to really be a paradigm shift in terms of looking at pre-K versus other levels, even within early childhood inside the district. So pre-K and to some extent kindergarten, but to a lesser extent, is a play-to-learn environment. And that's a really key distinction, right? This is not an area where you can walk into a classroom and expect to see kids lined up at desks. What is A? And then you have a bunch of 4-year-olds raise their hand. It doesn't work like that. And really, intentional play and putting kids in environments where they can learn from exploring is the name of the game. And there's that is a skill set that's very similar to the type of skill set you might need for like a special education classroom. And so providing teachers, especially those new teachers, new to the environment with the kind of supports that they need, is of absolute priority. Planning and data support. So as you've heard me talk about, this really does deserve a holistic plan, and the plan really needs to be a long-term plan. So if you go around this community, you will probably find 10 to 15 different holistic community plans for early childhood education, and they all come from individual nonprofits that say, we're going to do this, and if the district would just do A, B, and C, then everything would work out and it'd be great. What's really happened is that there's a vacuum, and the district needs to make sure that we anchor the community as the largest bucket of public dollars, along with our friends at the Workforce Commission, and